Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of our new series, The New Wave. It's the first time we've done a series like this and made it so widely available to everyone. And so I'm so excited and delighted to welcome such a huge community from around the world who are joining us today. Those of you who can make it live, welcome. We're so happy to have you here because your energy and vibration helps to create this content and this conversation. And for those of you who are listening to the recording, we're still feeling you with us too. So thanks so much for joining us. For those of you who haven't come across what we do before, I'm Rebecca Dawson, and I'm a channeler that's based in Australia. At the moment, I'm in the US. I'm coming to you live from there. And I channel a team of masters that we've been bringing through for getting on to 30 years now. So we're excited to bring this content and this series, and the masters have asked us to make it so widely available because it's really talking about the very foundation and basis of the shift between 3D and 5D. So for those of you who aren't familiar with channeling or how I do that, I'm a voice channel. And as the masters come through, my voice will change, my face will change a bit, and my mannerisms, and you'll definitely feel a shift and a change in frequency as you start to sit in the energy with us. So we first started talking about a shift between 3D and 5D way back in the early 2000s. And then we started to really bring this information forward in seminars in the 2010s. And at that time, it was actually quite an out there concept, quite a radical concept. What is this 5D? What does this mean? And so it's super delightful and encouraging to see that conversations around 5D or reference to this concept of a 5D reality are so commonplace now. To me personally, that's super encouraging because it's so nice to see that which the masters have been preparing us for and teaching us about really start to come into the collective awareness now. In fact, we're right in the midst of this shift in paradigm. Now, we do teach many seminars throughout the year with some more advanced concepts of consciousness and the mechanics of reality, but we really wanted to revisit the fundamentals and foundations of this shift between 3D and 5D for where human consciousness is right now. So I'm really excited for this series because we're going to be looking at it from a new perspective and a new lens to make it really more embracing of where we are as a collective species at this time. So this series is going to be divided up into 4 topics. We're going to have relationships, which we're going to start with tonight. And then there's going to be money and abundance, health and vitality, and space and environment. I'm not sure what order the others will be in. That's always a surprise. I like to pretend I know what's going to happen, but the masters usually just create it the way that they would like to in the moment. It's always a very spontaneous creation. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We don't have Q&A incorporated into this series, and we normally do. We like to have our conversations with the masters in a very interactive way, but because there's so many people joining us for this series, it makes it difficult for me to be able to coordinate and monitor those questions. I'm here doing this by myself, so I don't have a moderator to help me with that. So that being said, it's just going to be a conversation that's expressed by the masters. However, you do still have the ability to use the chat bar, and I can see many of you are already there. Thank you so much for jumping in and saying hello. You might like to pop in and say where you're from tonight so we can get a real feel for the community that's happening here. Okay, so we have people from Poland. We've got Western Australia, Hawaii, hello. Santa Barbara. And we've got Perth, Connecticut, Vancouver Island. We've got people from all over the world. How beautiful. It's so easy during these times of shift to feel as if we're isolated. I know even I do personally in my experience, because when we move out of resonance or we move into a new way of seeing, it's easy to feel as if we can't really feel connected to the worlds around us anymore. So I love these experiences. For me personally, it's really beautiful because I get to really feel that sense of others who are experiencing some of the effects or some of the strangeness of this paradigm shift. So how beautiful that we can all be here and celebrate that together at this time. Okay, so that's our housekeeping done. I just wanted to mention as well that the recordings will be out and will be sent out by email the day following each live recording. And of course, I wanted to thank you all for your patience in the rescheduling. We moved a week because I was stuck at an airport in an ice storm, which is not the greatest place to be running a live stream webinar from. So thank you very much for still being with us tonight. And we look forward to seeing what's going to unfold in the next 4 weeks. Okay, so that being said, we're just going to dive in. Greetings to you, blessed ones, we are with you. The shift in consciousness that the Earth reality is experiencing at this time is often seen as a shift from one thing to another, from the old reality to a new reality, from an old Earth to a new Earth. We want to be very clear that there is nothing that you can do to accelerate this experience, nor is there anything that you can do to prevent it. There is often a question, what is it that I can do to increase consciousness? And we do find this very interesting that humans believe that they can somehow affect the rate at which consciousness experiences itself in evolution. The shift that humanity is experiencing between third dimensional and fifth dimensional state of reality is part of a much greater movement within the cosmos. And therefore, it is an inevitable movement, an inevitable shift in frequency and in a sense of reality that humanity is experiencing. Your question may be, well, if I cannot change or affect or raise my own consciousness or accelerate my own evolution, what is it that I can do? And what we say to you is that you can be aware of what is happening so that you may be present to it. Because when you are present to it, you have an ability to become conscious of what is occurring. And when you are conscious of what is occurring, you can be with it and be here in a state of joy and a state of harmonic resonance. So in our view, there is never a battle between you and your ability to be conscious. It is only a question of, am I aware of myself as conscious? So the shift, as you will begin to understand between the old and the new, between the third and the fifth dimensional reality, is a shift in perception. It is a shift in perceivable reality, a shift in viewing. Indeed, any shift in vibration is a shift in viewing. So it's not wise to concern yourself with how you can increase your likeliness of being conscious, or indeed increase your level of consciousness. What you can do is you can give yourself permission to be more present and more aware of it. And indeed, this is why meditative practices and practices that encourage you to be in a state of present moment, in a state of now, allow you to become aware of what is. So in many ways, this should be encouraging to you as a human, that the shift and the opening of consciousness and the acceleration of evolution for humanity is happening. It is inevitable, and there is nothing that you can do to slow it down nor to prevent it. So we want to begin our conversation on this day with speaking with you about relationships. We want to speak about relationships, abundance, and what you call money, health and vitality, and space and environment, because these are the pillars, these are the foundations of how you experience your world as a human. We begin with relationships because relatability and how you commune and experience each other is indeed foundationary in how you will approach and perceive a reality from a new perspective. So we wish to begin, of course, at this time with expressing to you how we view in a very simplistic way what the shift between third dimensional and fifth dimensional reality actually is. There are many that would say, well, the shift from third dimensional to fifth dimensional reality means we are moving from one reality to another reality. We are moving from one earth to another earth, from one paradigm to another paradigm. And indeed, even in the ideological approach to this concept, it may seem very disruptive, that it's disruptive to be taken out of one and put in another. And there is a sense of separation just in that movement. And yet, as we say to you, consciousness continuing to experience itself is moving out of a sense of separation, and moving out of a sense of separation and into a seamless coherence of life is also to be experienced in what you call this shift from third dimensional to fifth dimensional reality. In other words, it may be perceived or sensed by you in your terms of separation duality belief that the shift is disruptive. But in our view, it's actually just an opening. It's actually just an expansion that can be quite joyous rather than disruptive, as many of you believe it will be or is. So in this way, we wish to explain to you or to illustrate for you our view of what this movement between third dimensional and fifth dimensional reality is about, so that you can begin to conceptualize within your own perception a beautiful unfolding rather than a cataclysmic shift. So we wish to illustrate for you our view. If you consider that anything that you view within your reality is based upon a light or a light wave, anything that you experience within your perceivable reality exists within a particular bandwidth of vibration. What you experience in your third dimensional reality is a version of all that is. And the denser your reality, in other words, the narrower the bandwidth of vibration, that will actually dictate, that will actually denote what it is that you can view. So within your third dimensional reality, as you have understood it, you have a particular range of frequency that you can perceive within. And this third dimensional bandwidth of frequency is what denotes the reality you exist within. Any perception of your reality is based upon what can be perceived, understood, or conceptualized within this bandwidth of perception. So even if you may have an existence that there is something other than your third dimensional reality, this is what is observable. When consciousness begins to expand, it begins to expand and in both directions. So when there is a paradigm shift or a dimensional reality shift for a collective consciousness, or even for what you believe yourself to be as an individual point of consciousness, the bandwidth begins to expand. And so fifth dimensional reality widens the aperture of what is perceivable because the bandwidth of frequency expands. This is the expansion of your own consciousness. Now, as you can see here, as consciousness begins to expand and moves into a fifth dimensional spectrum of perception, You can see that third dimensional reality does not cease to exist. You now embrace third dimensional reality and move beyond it. So here in this, there is no sense of separation. You do not move out of one and into the other. You merely expand to encompass more. And this is an evolution of consciousness within your earth reality. If you were to move into seventh dimensional reality, that bandwidth would widen even more. And so you would have the ability to see even more beyond your discernible sense of reality. If you consider what is observable from Earth in your space-time, you can see that within third dimensional reality, you have a limited view of the cosmos. The more that human consciousness expands, the more you can see, the more you have accessibility to. So the Earth reality appears to be less contained. Earth appears to be a part of something greater. And the same is for the individual experience. The more you move beyond the experience and the perception of third dimensional reality, the more it appears you are a part of something greater, the more connectivity and coherence and unification you begin to feel. So the expansion of human consciousness within your earth reality does not move from one paradigm to another. It merely broadens. Just as a light will go through a keyhole and out the other side, depending on how expanded the consciousness is that's viewing as you, from you, through you, will depend on how wide the aperture or spectrum of vibration is that you can view. This is why humans will say, I want to raise my vibration so that I can experience more. Your vibration is raising, and therefore you are viewing more. But one must be cautious, because you are not causing your vibration to raise so that you can see more. Your vibration is raising, and therefore you can see more. This is very important to understand, because the earth shift is a part of something much greater. This means that there is less emphasis and focus and pressure on you to make it happen, but more there is an allowing and a sense of grace and a sense of comfort and ease in experiencing it happening. So what we find very interesting about the third dimensional reality is that you can see, first of all, it's a very narrow bandwidth. And this is also true for what you can observe as spectrum of light and color and sound and so on. The narrower the bandwidth, the narrower the range of what you can perceive and experience. What you discover about third dimensional reality is it is very much like a mirror effect, because this narrow bandwidth of light has a reflective quality to it. This is what we call the mirror or the reflection. And so what happens is that you have the same images, the same concepts, the same experiences, the same histories, and so on, that move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, action and reaction, repetition, slight changes, of course, permutations, versions of the same light bouncing back and forth. And this is very important to understand, because your third dimensional reality, what is very specific to it, is this sense of history repeating itself. It's a sense of repetition of pattern, repetition of thought, repetition of karmic trauma patterns, repetition of nuances in your own behavior, repetition of action. And so you find yourself within a reality that becomes very focused upon regulation, repetition, order, and so on. This is very relevant, of course, in terms of our topic of relationship. Because what this means is that how you relate to another, whether it be a partner or a colleague or a child or a parent or a neighbor or so on, it's very reflective, like a mirror. So not only do you have repetitious themes that come up in all of your relationships, not only do you have repetitious experiences within your relationships, you also have this reflective quality. And the reflective quality is how humans have come to understand the value of relationships. Even the most conscious humans will say, well, this human over here is reflecting something back to me about myself. And I am reflecting something to them about themselves. And so there is this exchange balance paradigm that's created, where the game becomes, how can we move into balance with this? There's also a sense of negotiation, because you are trying to align with the image in the mirror, or trying to have the image in the mirror aligned to you. And so many relationships can be viewed as complementary, but it's very difficult to sustain a sense of complementary, because the way in which light reflects here, even if you believe that you enjoy the complementary nature of opposition within relationships, you will ultimately seek to replicate yourself. And this is where relationships become very transactional. This is where one partner likes the other partner to be like them, or you try to be like your partner, and so on. But what's very interesting here about this mirror effect is that is also what underlies the karmic principle. Because if light keeps echoing back and forth, you're going to keep getting the same experiences over and over and over again. They might appear slightly differently with different people, or different times, or different sets of circumstances, but the theme tends to be the same. Now, this is also very interesting, because one may ask, well, why is it that this reflective nature of reality sits here? This reflective nature of reality is held into place just like the opaque backing on a mirror. The opaque backing on the mirror is what we would call fourth dimensional construct. And it sits in place like a membrane. And what that membrane does is it contains or reinforces this cycle of repetition or echo, that it continues to allow the consciousness and the light and the sound to echo back and forth. It doesn't really go anywhere, which is why real progress or real sense of evolution has been somewhat elusive to humans. In fact, we would say that evolution is a theory that is not really understood by humanity, because they've only been able to understand it within a mirror paradigm. Now, this fourth dimensional membrane is what you may refer to as time. Because the construct of time is a construct of limitation that allows this reflective action and reaction to be contained. Interesting, agree? Interesting. The adherence to time and the belief in time is what maintains this mirror reality. Now, the mirror reality is also what we would call the holographic reality. Where image is everything. And different tessellations, different versions, different permutations of imagery, all moving, all changing, but the essence of it never really changes, is what fills your space. So it's like being in a kaleidoscope. You can get movement all the time, and it appears that you're evolving, and it appears that things are changing, but it's really just reformation and new, slightly different versions of the same themes, the same concepts, the same beliefs that keep circulating around and around. So there's an appearance of movement and progress, but you're not really going anywhere. And this is, in essence, where humanity's been for about 300,000 years. And it's what enables this concept or the experience of what you call the karmic cycle to continue to exist. So the more conscious you become and the more you step into your own awareness, you begin to move into meditative practices. And indeed, there are many teachers at this time who are speaking about the importance of presence and being in the now moment, which allows you to actually move beyond the fourth dimensional membrane for moments, so that you can begin to experience your own expanded consciousness. And for many who are in the now moment or the present moment, you can sense that there's more to be perceived. Colors become richer. You notice sounds you didn't notice before. You have a greater sense of presence, and your perceivable view of reality begins to expand. It broadens. There's a richer, deeper sense to your environment, because you're actually now moving beyond the limitation of this fourth dimensional time membrane, and you're now beginning to see what's really there, because you've only been able to see a very, very, very limited view of what's available. So as you begin to move into fifth dimensional reality, you begin to experience things that you don't necessarily have evidence for, but you also begin to consider, I'm not really interested in having exchange relationships with people. I'm not really interested in negotiation. I'm not really interested in learning the same lessons anymore. I'm not really interested even in compatibility. So for many of you, you're becoming quite disillusioned with relationship because you don't want it to be a workable arrangement. And you're also, many of you, the more conscious you're becoming, you're actually becoming quite disillusioned with the image of yourself, because you realize that what you've been negotiating with the other person is all based on image. It's based on the reflection of who you are in the mirror, which has nothing to do with the essence of you or the reality of you. So you've been tessellating with imagery, not really participating in the truest sense of who you are as a creative being. So the disillusionment with this type of relationship is very natural as you begin to expand your perception into fifth dimensional reality. Now, fifth dimensional reality, blessed ones, is not about completion. It's not about rearrangement to find perfect alignment. It's not about negotiation and lessons and trying to correct what are perceivable errors in the past in order to bring about union. Because this is what happens when you look in a mirror. You try to correct your image. Does it match how I feel today? How do I get it to line up? How do I get the image or the reality I see in front of me to reflect how I truly feel that I am? And so many of you at this time, as you become more consciousness, are saying, well, the life that is around me, it doesn't match how I feel about myself. And yet I have been diligent in my practices. I have been doing everything that I can to raise my vibration. What's going wrong for me? Why isn't my reality or my life matching the truth of who I feel myself to be? So this is where relationships become very different, because when you become disillusioned with wanting to create that match with another person and negotiate so that your partner or your colleague or your child or your reality matches what you think your identity is, you begin to move into, all I'm really interested in is something else. Give me something else. There must be something else. There must be something new. And this is where you find yourself in the new fifth dimensional bandwidth of frequency, where it's no longer about correction and completion. It's now about beginnings. And when you move into this energy of beginnings, You're not interested in matching frequency with other people to find connection. You're only really interested in resonance. And this is very different, because resonance is not something that you really move into. It's something that just is, which means that you are as you are as you are, and you sense resonance with someone else. There's no work involved in trying to move into resonance. In other words, there's no negotiation. There's no working on the relationship. There's no, what do I need to change about myself to find compatibility or connectivity with this person or this group or this project. So fifth dimensional spectrum of experience, this fifth dimensional earth consciousness, is all about the new, which means that anything that is going to be interesting to you, the whole impetus for life, the whole sense of vitality is about newness. It's not about completion. Because remember, in third dimensional reality, where is there the greatest sense of euphoria? Where is there the greatest sense of achievement and success? It's in completion. I did it. I finished it. I passed. I conquered the mountain. I finally found peace. I finally passed my exams. I finally got to the promotion that I wanted. I finally broke through this trauma pattern. That's all about a focus on completion. So the impetus for life is on completion within that mirror spectrum. Within fifth dimensional reality, the focus is on ignition. It's on creation. It's on what is new here. And so what this means is that any relationship that you move into in fifth dimensional reality is only for the purpose of new. It's only with newness in mind, which means that the resonance that you discover with other people is going to be based upon what can we do that's new? What's interesting to us? What haven't we done before? What would we like to create? So there may be many of you at this time who are still in a sense of commitment or a sense of mire with third dimensional relationships you've already established. The question may be, is it necessary to move out of those relationships in order to experience this fifth dimensional creative impetus that is more suited now to your consciousness and its spectrum of vibration? We would say no. What is important, not necessarily. You may choose to move out of those relationships, but you have the possibility of still being in those relationships if you choose, if you both agree that you now want to focus on what you can begin, what you can create, what is curious and interesting to you, which can be very challenging for relationships that are based upon a sense of success with completion. Oh, we completed this, we built a home. Oh, we completed this, we had a family. Oh, we have this much money in the bank. We have completed this, we are successful. That's not going to be satisfying. What's going to be satisfying is, what can we begin? Because that is the hallmark of the new earth reality and the fifth dimensional consciousness. We wish to illustrate this to you in a new way. If you consider that in third dimensional reality, you can have an individual here and an individual here. And life is very sequential. You take steps, and it takes a lot of energy to move anywhere. There is a real sense of perceivable progress as you move along in your life journeys. Here is one person and here is one person. So you have a very individualized perspective of your journey. And as such, within relationships, one must seek to find another who can move in a similar trajectory to you. However, if one begins to move into a different direction than the other, unless the other begins to move in a similar direction or at a similar pace in terms of the evolution of their own sense of identity, it becomes very difficult for these two individuals to actually stay in any form of cooperative connection. Because what you can see is that they are creating individually. So the coherence of this type of third dimensional relationship, remember, mirroring each other, mirroring each other, mirroring each other, entirely depends on moving at the same pace or moving in the same direction, which is very, very difficult to maintain. That's why there can often be a sense of exuberance and romanticism and elation and ecstasy at the beginning of a relationship, because in the beginning, you're actually feeling as if you're in a space where you can begin things together. But unless both individuals move in the same direction or at the same speed, that's incredibly difficult to maintain. As you begin to move into fifth dimensional reality, what you discover is that an individual here and an individual here, rather than having compatibility, which means you have things that I don't and you have things that I don't, so that's going to work out quite well. And there's enough similarity there to keep us interested. In this experience here, the connection is based on a sense of resonance. Now, as we have already suggested, in fifth dimensional reality, connection doesn't require negotiation. You're not interested in connecting with each other's identity. It's the resonance with the essence of who you are. Therefore, as soon as you come into contact with that person, the resonance is there. It already is. It's non-negotiable. You feel it. You don't have to work towards it. It is. And so therefore, the resonance of the two of you means that in that moment that you come into resonance and you both recognize it, you move into a state of unification, which is what your quantum physics are beginning to show you, that is that anything that exists in a state of resonance actually exists as one form, one space, one time, one moment. So it is this unification mechanism of resonance that then allows you both to come into a state of creation, co-creation, which means that from this point, you are no longer creating separately on individual journeys. Now what happens is that from that unification moment, you start to create in multiple directions, multiple permutations of possibility that didn't exist before. It's new. Now, this can be ideas that you come up with. It can be desires that you wish to have. It can be particular movements and directions that you go in. It matters not, because what matters is that in that moment that the resonance is felt, you are already spawning all of these new directions and possibilities that didn't exist before. This is why it is said where two or more gather, because where two or more gather, the state of resonance, and therefore the moment of unification begins to create all new pathways and possibilities. Now, these pathways and possibilities are new. It's very different from the individual journey where you're seeing where you want to go and you're moving towards it. This is the great unknown, but the joy is watching it unfold. And these new possibilities and pathways, in essence, become the new vibrational neural network for the new Earth reality. It becomes the blueprint of everything that is possible. All of the new possibilities and creations are spawned in that moment of resonance and unification. So two people coming together in resonance suddenly ignite a whole new series of pathways of possibility, which is why in fifth dimensional reality, relationships based on resonance appear to be life-changing because suddenly your life opens up in new ways you didn't consider before. It's all about the ignition. Now, what's very wonderful about this is because it's not an individual journey anymore, you're not committed to stay in your lane or stay on your individual path. Because now that you've spawned this, or now that you've ignited this, it continues. It continues to unfold and become available in the collective human consciousness. It becomes available for all of humanity. You are birthing the planet, birthing the nervous system of the new pathways of possibilities as you do so. This is why these unions can feel so divine. And it doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. It can be with a stranger, and suddenly the recognition of resonance is there and you can almost feel it occurring. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you have to now commit to now putting energy in to make these things happen, because remember, now the foundation is laid, they become available to happen. This person may then decide that they have also found resonance over here with this person. And that then ignites another unification experience that spawns even more activity and resonance. So it continues. Your sense of vitality in fifth dimensional reality is going to be based upon this sense of, I wonder what is possible here. So the sense of curiosity and spontaneity is the hallmark of this creative expansion. And it's where your sense of vitality is going to come from, which means you're not going to feel as charged and as life affirming within your own biology with a sense of completion or personal individual endeavor. You're going to start to feel the sense of vitality from shared co-creation and initiation and curiosity for what's possible. That's the driving force for life for the human in fifth dimensional reality. This is very important. Now, what you also see about this is that it's largely an unknown. You go into it with a sense. You don't know what it's going to become, and suddenly your life begins to change. So that's how you also become catalysts for each other for change. Wonderful. Here you can also see that nothing occurs in isolation. Nothing, which of course is the nature of the universe and the cosmos, just as the earth itself does not occur in isolation. So relationships, of course, as the hallmark of reference for connectivity, collaboration, and cooperation for humanity, is so important to understand in this new paradigm, this fifth dimensional reality. And we encourage you to move with your feeling state, not to try to create resonance, because you cannot expand your own consciousness. Resonance is, but rather to give yourself permission to begin to notice it. Where there is resonance, there is ignition for creation. It doesn't mean to say that you don't still have experiences in third dimensional reality. You do, but you can become more conscious about choosing whether to put your attention in that cause and effect mirror paradigm that's really focusing on a completion census, or you can begin to focus your sense of presence beyond that membrane of time and into possibility and curiosity, and begin to birth and create this new earth reality. So blessed ones, that is how we begin with you on this day. Embrace each other. Know that you are here to create and to ignite. And know that nothing occurs in isolation. It is our joy to be with you. Ah, well, thank you everyone for being here for our first foray into the shift between 3D and 5D. You can read about and discover more about this in our book, which we put a link in the email that's coming to you tomorrow, The New Human Experience, which was our first introduction into this. But we're going to be exploring more with you next week. I'm not sure which topic we're going to be moving into next. I wait for the masters on the day to let us know. But I'm in incredible gratitude to have you with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. What a beautiful community we are from all around the world. I hope that's been helpful to you. And I look forward to diving in resonance with you into more next week in week 2. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful day.